All right, now that the plumbing has all been set up for us, we can actually begin. And again, I want this to turn into a chant with the class now. Write the stub, write a failing test, write the minimal code to pass the test, and then repeat over and over and over again. And if you actually follow this process, you can't get lines of code that aren't tested. So whenever I see somebody who runs their tests for the first time or their code coverage and don't get 100% code coverage, you know that they didn't follow this process. So again, I want everyone to follow this process. So let's start off by writing our stub. And let's always remember what our stub is. So I'm just going to bring it up. And I'm going to just leave this play around thing in here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my stub in here. And again, so you don't have to watch me type, I'm going to actually bring my stub in, and we'll talk about that. Okay. And this is our stub. So let's have a look at this. So this is the stub. And so I use this term stub because stub is an actual executable piece of code that has no logic within it. And we've noticed we've found from when we did our wireframe that we actually want 3 input parameters, and we also want 3 output parameters. That causes us a little bit of a problem. And again, for those of you that haven't been through the arrays or the objects section in Andre's video, or haven't listened to mine yet, what we're going to do is we can only return a single thing. So the single thing I'm going to return is an object. And inside of that object, we actually can put multiple things in there. And again, if you don't fully understand an object right now, don't worry about it. That's not a big deal. But the key thing here is our calcloan function is expecting a principal. It's expecting what the interest is for the year and how many years you're going to run the loan. Now again, the stub, it only shows what's going to be returned. In this case, we're returning 0 for all those attributes. So that's our stub. All right, so the next thing we want to do now that we have the stub there is I always run it just to make sure there's no errors in there. Okay, and our test ran, so that's perfectly successful. So I'm going to add the next test in there, and I'm going to just copy it in because I'm a little on the lazy side. Okay, now what you may have not seen, and I'll talk about this in a second, and I'll show you. All right, so if I call the calcloan process and I pass it $1,000, 1% interest, and that's again, my yearly interest is 1%, and I'm going to do it for 1 year, it should calculate the results of $83.79. It should calculate the total that I'm going to pay back is $1,005.42. Therefore, I'm paying $5.42 interest. And you might ask me, how do I know that? Well, the way that I know that is I've actually gone through and I should be working with the product owner. I generally don't write systems in areas that I know over all my years of experience. I always have a product owner or somebody who understands the business really well. And in this particular case, the product owner has told me that if there's a loan for $1,000 and the interest rate is 1% and the years are 1, that's what my monthly payment should be. That's what my total payment should be of all my payments. And the interest I'll pay after the year is $5.42. So I just trust them. Okay, so let's go back. Let's look at the code. And again, what I'm really trying to do to begin with is write my failing test. So in this particular case, because this is passing 0, it's going to fail. I'm going to save this. I'm going to save this. And I'm actually going to run this. And it's going to, in fact, give me an error. But it's important to understand where the errors are that I'm going to get. Okay? So again, it says that it ran 2 tests actually, 1 failed and 1 passed. So the total of 2 tests. If I look, I'm going to just open this up, give us a little more space here. So what it's saying is I expected the answer to be 83, but of course I hard-coded to 0. So if we look at that now, here is my expect. So what I did is I called it, passing it 1001 and 1. And what it's going to do is it's going to give me 83. It's expecting it to be 8379, but it's not. It's going to be 0. Okay? So now I've got my failing test. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run the minimal amount of code that actually allows me to let the test pass. And again, I'm going to cheat. As you guys all know, this is totally acceptable. I'm going to pass the monthly payment back. And again, I could do this one at a time, which I'm not going to do all of them that way. And if we look, I save that and I run it, and now it gives me 7379, 8379, 8379. Why did it do that? Low and calc. Oh, I don't know what's going wrong here. I'm going to save them both, and I'm going to run it. Don't know why that actually happened. Oh, sorry, I looked at the wrong test. So if you look at it now, it actually got past the 8379 and it's now at 10542. So I'm just going to hard code these answers. And again, a lot of people think this is silly, and it is at one level, but it actually makes sure that the right test is running. Okay, voila, and the test will pass. Now that's the minimum amount of code that I can, that's the minimum amount of code that I can run. And now it says 2 tests are passed. So those are all passed. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just clear my window so that I can start off from the next step now. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in my next set of tests. So if we look at the data that I was given, the next thing I'm going to put in is, what if I borrowed $1,000 at 10% interest for 1 year? My business owner, my product owner, said that these are the numbers I should get. Okay. So excuse me. So what we're going to do is I'm going to then run the next test, and I'll explain a little bit about that. Now, people have sometimes asked me, why would I do it like this rather than asking for the whole, just do an expect? It's, to me, way easier to look at the answers here and understand exactly what I'm getting. So I'll often do that. So again, when I'm writing my tests, I'll often do a setup, then I'll do my checking, and sometimes I'll actually do a teardown after that. So these are the numbers I expect. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to run this. And now my tests are actually going to fail. So the next thing I'm going to ask is, what's the minimum amount of code I can run? So yeah, in this case, as you can see, it's line 19 that failed, it's line 19 that failed. Okay, as I would expect it to fail. All right, this looks like a good place to take a little bit of a break. I'm going to take a little bit of a break and make sure that everybody is on board on where we are so far.